He doesn't scream, he doesn't panic, he doesn't flinch. He watches, calculates, moves only when necessary. And when he moves, people obey. We live in a world that rewards performance, confidence, composure. But underneath the surface, there's a darker truth. The most respected man in the room might be the most dangerous, not because he is violent, not because he is cruel, but because he is cold, emotionless, unshaken, unreachable. You've seen him before, in films, in offices, on the news, the CEO who smiles while laying off thousands, the politician who talks of collateral damage as if lives are numbers, the lover who vanishes without explanation, leaving silence in their place. He is not always cruel, but he is never vulnerable, and for reasons we rarely question, we respect him. Why? Why does the world admire those who show no emotion? Why does stillness, detachment, even apathy appear stronger than love, compassion, or grief? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and philosopher, once wrote, "The lack of emotion, the absence of empathy is not a sign of strength, but of something missing." He called it the shadow, the part of ourselves we refuse to see, the part society suppresses in the name of order, success, and reason. And yet in suppressing it, we may have created something far more dangerous. A world led not by complete human beings, but by half-souls in tailored suits, men who no longer cry, men who no longer feel, men who mistake numbness for power. This is the story of the cold man, not just who he is, but how he became the modern ideal, and why Carl Jung warned us, if we continue to glorify him, he will become our God. This isn't just a psychological profile, it's a mirror, and what you see might disturb you. To understand the cold man, we must first understand the mind that warned us about him. Carl Gustav Jung wasn't just a psychiatrist, he was a mythologist of the soul. He believed that beneath every human face lies a hidden world, a world shaped not by logic, but by fear, repression, and forgotten truths. At the center of this hidden world is what Jung called the shadow. The shadow, he wrote, is everything the individual refuses to acknowledge about himself, everything incompatible with one's chosen persona. It is the chaos we bury, the emotions we suppress, the pain we deny. In Jung's eyes, no one escapes the shadow. We all carry it, but the danger comes when we pretend we don't. The cold man isn't born that way. He is forged. He learns early that emotion is weakness, that vulnerability invites harm, that detachment is safer than compassion. So he constructs a shell. He becomes controlled, predictable, indifferent. He believes this is mastery, but Jung would say it's the opposite. It's avoidance, a denial of the full human self. What the cold man sees as strength, Jung saw as imbalance. To Jung, every individual is on a journey toward individuation, the process of becoming whole. This journey isn't about becoming colder. It's about integrating both the light and the dark, the rational and the emotional, the conscious and the unconscious. But society doesn't reward that. Society rewards performance. Think about it. The businessman who remains calm while everyone else panics, he's admired. The leader who makes brutal decisions for the greater good, he's praised. The lover who stays distant is seen as more desirable than the one who cares too much. Emotion becomes the enemy. Empathy becomes optional, and the more detached we become, the more strong we are perceived to be. But Jung warns, this isn't strength, it's a disconnection from the self. And what's buried doesn't die. It waits. The shadow is patient. And when ignored for too long, it takes over. This is why Jung was afraid of the cold man, not because of what he does, but because of what he refuses to see. He refuses to see his own shadow. And a man who cannot see his shadow, cannot see the damage he causes others. He believes himself objective, above bias, above emotion. But in truth, he is ruled by the very thing he suppresses. Now imagine this man in power, in leadership, In control of a system that rewards his detachment, this is where the warning becomes urgent. Jung believed that when enough individuals repress their shadows, that shadow doesn't just fester in the individual. It spills into the collective, into governments, corporations, cultures. And soon, you're not just dealing with one cold man. You're dealing with an entire cold society, one that forgets how to feel, one that sees compassion as inefficiency, one that praises monsters as visionaries. The shadow was never meant to be destroyed. It was meant to be understood. But when we idolize the cold man, we don't understand him. We enable him, we promote him, and slowly we become him. In trying to eliminate our weakness, we may have amputated our humanity. And the world doesn't just respect the cold man anymore. It obeys him. The image of the cold, detached man isn't new. History is filled with them, not just as characters, but as architects of entire eras. Men who rose to power not because they inspired love, but because they demanded order. Maximilian, Robespierre during the French Revolution, preached virtue while sending thousands to the guillotine. His demeanor was icy, controlled, almost mechanical. He believed emotion led to chaos, and only pure reason could save a nation. In the name of logic, he created terror. Joseph Stalin watched his closest allies vanish under his own commands. He didn't tremble. He didn't doubt. His rational calculations were absolute even if they came at the cost of millions of lives. He wasn't fiery like Lenin. He was cold. And it worked. In Nazi Germany, Adolf Eichmann organized logistics for the Holocaust not out of rage or hatred, but bureaucratic efficiency. At his trial, he claimed he was just following orders. His demeanor shocked the world, not because it was monstrous, but because it was ordinary, emotionless, controlled. The cold man does not scream. He signs documents, he issues quiet commands, he tells himself it's necessary. These men didn't rise by chance. They appeared in moments of chaos, when societies were desperate for control. In disorder, the cold man looks like salvation. When people are afraid, emotion feels like a liability. They want someone who doesn't flinch, who doesn't feel. That's the pattern. In times of crisis, the man who suppresses emotion becomes the man people trust. But trust based on fear isn't trust at all. It's surrender. Carl Jung understood this psychological dynamic. He warned that when people are overwhelmed by uncertainty, they begin to project their fears and hopes onto powerful figures. They no longer see a person. They see a savior or a monster. They see what they need to see. He called this projection, a psychological defense mechanism where people externalize their inner conflicts onto others. And once projection begins, reason ends. The cold man doesn't need to persuade. People project strength onto him. They want him to be invincible. So he becomes the vessel of their fantasies or their terror. Either way, he wins. In this way, entire societies fall under the illusion of rational leadership. But behind that illusion is always the shadow, repression, fear, emotional paralysis. Jung didn't just observe this in individuals. He saw it in masses, in collective movements, in ideologies. He believed that when a society ignores its own emotional needs, it becomes vulnerable to the coldest leaders, those who promise order at the cost of empathy. We often wonder how ordinary people commit atrocities, how entire populations go along with inhuman decisions. The answer isn't always ideology. Sometimes it's numbness, a cultural coldness that spreads like a virus. When humanity is stripped from decisions, anything becomes justifiable. Numbers replace names, strategies replace souls. And the men who lead those systems, they believe they are objective, efficient, professional. But Jung would argue they are possessed, not by evil, but by a psychic imbalance, a total identification with the persona, the mask they wear, and a complete denial of the shadow. The cold man cannot see the horror he causes, because horror requires empathy. He doesn't feel rage, he doesn't feel guilt, he only feels necessity. And the world, time and time again, rewards him for it. Even now, we romanticize these figures. We write books about their genius. We analyze their leadership. We mimic their methods, but we rarely ask at what cost. The cold man leaves behind empires, but also mass graves. He builds economies, but empties souls. He creates order, but destroys connection. And still, the pattern repeats, because deep down we believe that emotional detachment is strength, that composure means clarity. That feeling nothing is the same as feeling in control, but it's not. It's a warning. History doesn't just remember cold men, it is shaped by them, and unless we understand why we keep choosing them, we will keep repeating their legacy. Jung tried to tell us, but we weren't listening. We don't just tolerate the cold man, we admire him. Even when we know he's distant, ruthless, or indifferent, something about him commands respect. It begins early. In childhood, boys are often told not to cry, not to complain, not to show fear. Emotional restraint is praised as maturity. A calm face is treated as a sign of strength. Sensitivity becomes a liability. By the time we become adults, we've learned the lesson well. The loudest voice is seen as insecure, the emotional one as irrational. The composed one, no matter how cold, is trusted. This instinct is deeper than culture. It's evolutionary. In moments of crisis, our brains look for signs of control. Someone calm in chaos appears more capable. We associate stillness with leadership, emotion with panic, and we mistake suppression for stability. The cold man exploits this instinct. He doesn't have to dominate the room. He just has to remain unreadable. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes power. Studies in social psychology show this bias clearly. People trust those who show less emotion during negotiations. They assume they're smarter, more logical, more in control. It doesn't matter if it's true. The perception is enough. This perception is everywhere. In the courtroom, in the boardroom, in politics, in romance. We gravitate toward those who don't flinch. We assume they've seen more, know more, can handle more. But what if their coldness isn't control but a defense? What if it's not power but paralysis? Carl Jung believed that excessive detachment is a symptom of psychic fragmentation. When someone cuts themselves off from emotion, it's often because they were overwhelmed by it. What looks like stoicism might actually be fear. Fear of feeling anything at all. Still, we don't see it that way because most of us are doing the same thing. We're all performing, all trying to appear calm, unaffected, above it. In that sense, the cold man becomes aspirational. He represents what we wish we could be, unbothered, impervious, in control. Social media only amplifies this image. We reward those who stay detached, who post without revealing, who share without exposing. Vulnerability is mocked. Curated detachment is idolized. Even in relationships, emotional availability is seen as less attractive than mystery. The partner who stays distant becomes the one who holds power. We confuse unpredictability with depth, silence with strength. But the cold man isn't deep. He's closed, and we've made him the standard. This worship of coldness changes our values. Empathy becomes weakness. Kindness becomes naivety. Warmth becomes a risk. Soon, we're not just admiring the cold man. We're becoming him. We laugh less, trust less, share less. We suppress our own emotions just to survive, and we mistake that suppression for maturity. But Jung warned, what is repressed doesn't disappear. It builds pressure. And when it finally breaks through, it doesn't come out as a healthy expression. It explodes. That's why so many people who seem calm suddenly break down. Why the most collected individuals end up imploding. They weren't managing emotion. They were avoiding it. The admiration of the cold man is not just psychological, it's cultural. We've built systems that reward detachment. In business, emotion is a liability. In politics, it's a threat. In war, it's a weakness. The result is a world that prioritizes efficiency over empathy, performance over authenticity. control over connection. And those who succeed within these systems, the cold men, aren't anomalies. They are products. We didn't just allow them, we created them, we celebrated them. We promoted them because we believed they were strong. Jung would ask, strong compared to what? Compared to someone who cries in public, someone who admits they're afraid, someone who chooses kindness even when it's inefficient. What we call strength may simply be numbness. What we call confidence may be dissociation. The cold man isn't proof of human evolution. He's evidence of human fragmentation. And as long as we keep admiring him, we will keep building a world that reflects him. A colder world, a quieter world, a lonelier world. The cold man is not always born. Often, he is built. He is manufactured by institutions that reward control and punish vulnerability. He is shaped by environments where appearing emotional is a risk, where showing too much humanity is a liability, where silence is safer than sincerity. In corporate systems, efficiency is everything. Emotions are inefficient. Compassion slows decisions. Empathy complicates profit. Workers are evaluated by performance metrics, not personal well-being. Leaders are trained to make decisions that maximize growth, even when that growth comes at the cost of lives, families, or communities. The cold man thrives here, not because he is cruel, but because he is useful. In politics, the game is power. A candidate who admits uncertainty is seen as weak. A leader who hesitates emotionally is branded unstable. The one who stays composed, unshaken, scripted, wins. The more detached he becomes, the more presidential he appears. Not because detachment is wisdom, but because it makes people feel safe. Manufactured coldness becomes the currency of leadership. Even in education, children are taught to suppress. The quiet student is praised for discipline. The emotionally expressive one is labeled disruptive. Boys are told to toughen up. Girls are told to calm down. Over time, feeling becomes shameful. Detachment becomes maturity. Social media trains us to filter not just our photos, but our feelings. Online vulnerability is entertainment or a target. The algorithm rewards outrage and detachment. The less you seem to care, the more respect you gain. It's not connection, it's performance. Carl Jung warned about this. He believed that when society suppresses emotional truth, it doesn't produce healthier individuals. It produces psychological masks, personas, empty performances of confidence, rationality, strength. But underneath those masks is confusion, fear, longing. The cold man wasn't always cold. He was once sensitive, he once felt deeply. But at some point the world taught him that warmth is dangerous, that safety lies in distance, that to be respected he must hide. So he hid. He put on the mask. He learned the script. He practiced the silence. And now he moves through the world untouched, admired, imitated, but not known. Manufactured coldness isn't strength. It's the result of systems that no longer value the full human being, systems that demand function without feeling, that elevate logic but exile love. These systems don't just produce cold men, they depend on them, because a person who no longer feels deeply is easier to use, easier to promote, easier to obey. When humanity is inconvenient, the cold man becomes ideal, but something is lost, not just in him but in us. We begin to trust detachment more than honesty. We start to prefer silence over sincerity, and eventually we forget what emotion even looks like when it's real. The cold man becomes normal, expected, required. And the tragedy is he no longer knows who he is without the mask. The cold man doesn't expect to break. He believes his detachment is protection, that staying distant will keep the chaos out, that silence will keep him safe. But what he doesn't realize is that the chaos never left. It only went inward. Carl Jung described the psyche as a system of balance. When one part is denied, when emotion is buried, when the shadow is ignored, it doesn't disappear. It builds pressure. It waits, and eventually it returns. Not as a whisper, but as a collapse. The cold man often doesn't notice the warning signs. He's too practiced at suppression. But it shows, first in subtle ways: fatigue, irritability, a growing numbness to everything, even the things that once gave him purpose. Then come the harder breaks. Emotional detachment becomes existential emptiness. The same composure that once won admiration now becomes a prison. He can't feel joy. He can't connect. He loses interest in people, in work, in himself. This is the fallout. Burnout isn't just exhaustion. It's emotional starvation. Depression isn't just sadness. It's the weight of years spent running from feeling. Addiction, breakdown, isolation, these are not failures of character. They are symptoms of disconnection. The cold man was never immune. He was only delaying the inevitable. For some, the collapse is internal, a slow drift into apathy. For others, it's violent, a sudden breakdown, a crisis, a scandal. In both cases, the truth emerges. Detachment is not resilience. It's avoidance, and what's avoided will always return. Jung believed that when a person suppresses emotion long enough, it eventually erupts in irrational, destructive ways. The more the shadow is ignored, the more violently it forces its way into consciousness. This is why we see so many public figures fall. CEOs with perfect records caught in personal scandals. Leaders with stoic reputations unraveling under pressure. People who seemed unshakable, suddenly consumed by the very chaos they work so hard to avoid. But the collapse is not always a curse. Sometimes it's a chance. A breaking point can become a turning point if the person is willing to confront what they've buried, if they can face the shadow, if they can admit that the image of strength they've been projecting was just that, an image. But not everyone reaches that insight. Many double down. They isolate further, harden more, reconstruct the mask, and the cycle continues. The cold man who breaks has two paths: integration or implosion. To integrate, he must feel, again, not perform feeling, actually feel, grief, regret, longing, fear, all the things he spent a lifetime avoiding. It is painful, it is slow, but it is the only path to wholeness. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming a complete human, not by erasing weakness, but by embracing it. The tragedy is, most people only begin this journey after something breaks, after the job is lost, after the relationship ends, after the facade collapses. But the truth was always there. No one escapes the need for meaning. No one transcends emotion. No one avoids the shadow forever, and when the cold man finally confronts it, he doesn't become weak, he becomes real. The world doesn't need more cold men. It needs men and women who are whole. Carl Jung didn't believe in the suppression of emotion. He believed in its integration. He saw every individual as a divided self, part mask, part shadow, part soul, and healing meant bringing those parts together. The solution was not to destroy the cold man, but to humanize him, to help him remember what it means to feel without fear, to be strong without being numb, to lead without losing the ability to love. That path is not found in books or titles or achievements. It's found in the quiet decision to reclaim what has been buried: warmth, empathy, connection. To say, I refuse to become what the world demands if it means losing who I am. That is courage. Reclaiming the warm soul does not mean abandoning reason. It means refusing to let reason become a shield against reality. It means daring to cry when it hurts, to speak when you're afraid, to listen when it's inconvenient. It means being human in a world that profits from your disconnection. And that choice, it matters. Because every time one person reclaims their inner life, it disrupts the system that manufactured the cold man in the first place. It sends a signal. I see through the mask. I will not worship the illusion. I choose something deeper, So choose it, because the world respects the cold man, but it remembers the warm soul. And if you're listening to this now, maybe it's because something inside you has already begun to thaw. Don't ignore it. Don't suppress it. Don't run from it. Lean in, feel it fully, and begin again, not colder, but more alive than ever before.